This video is a recording of a live event, about an hour and 15-minute webinar, and it's really packed with all sorts of energy healings and information and explorations into the fine abstract layers of creation. I hope you love it. If you do, please like and subscribe. And thank you for being with me on this journey. I'm going to say a little prayer of gratitude and then we'll dive in. Thank you, Ma. Thank you to the source of everything in creation for being the being of this live webinar, for being this live webinar. Thank you to the infinite diversity of expressions of being. Particularly all the expressions that are sort of lively focused tonight in this live webinar, especially, but in all gratitude to all beings in all places. And thank you to the ancestors of everyone listening in tonight for the willingness to participate in the healings on which we are about to embark. And thank you for the love and appreciation, for the support. And thank you to the being in all of us, the divine level of divine light, divine wisdom, the source of creation that is carried within the physiology and consciousness of everyone here. The 1-minute review, what is energy work, just so that things don't get too confusing too fast. Energy work is the process of focusing attention intelligently in order to activate specific aspects of the field of life and to bring completion to incompletions. The principle here being that consciousness itself consciousness is a manifestation of the source of creation. It is a manifestation of pure being. So by its nature, it is completely fulfilled. It is complete. Awareness, attention is complete. So wherever there's an incompletion or something that needs to be modified or changed, then bringing awareness there naturally brings in the flow of divine intention to that area. It activates the aspects of the self that have the inherent ability to create modifications and changes which are aligned with cosmic evolution. Also, one of the main principles of energy healing is that when any situation, circumstance, physical part, whatever, is not functioning up to its full potential, then just feeling it, guys. We want to get to the seed or the source of that lack of completion. And so in energy healing, what we're doing is we're looking at the system in terms of a broad spectrum of manifestation, from very abstract to very concrete. All right, so I've given names to these different levels, and right now we're at the spirit level, which means in the range from abstract to concrete, that means we're very close to the abstract level. If we divide that range into 8 layers, spirit level is very deep and very abstract, and that's the level of the physiology where the being individuality is experienced as its own laws of nature, as the principles, the underlying principles or functions which are responsible for the manifestation of creation as it is. And this is where we find unification of individuality with, oh, this is so beautiful. This is where we find unification of individuality with cosmic reality. And right now, and especially here in America, we're experiencing nighttime. That means the light of the stars is shining upon our moment, shining upon us at this moment. And we're bathing in this cosmic light. And this awareness is causing an integration of the qualities of cosmic light in the spirit body of the physiology. And everybody's physiologies at the spirit level are receiving a kind of a download for laws of nature specific to cosmic reality, to celestial reality, to the stars, to the planets, to the galaxies, to the space. Awareness is at that point, at that spirit body point. And what it's doing is it seems to be awakening a very ancient memory in the being. And this is for the sake of supporting the ability to self-identify more in a more realistic way. So ancestors are listening. It's been considered for centuries appropriate and humble to think of oneself as kind of pathetic or kind of very small and unimportant or not powerful. And the antenna, which is the physiology, the antenna of the universe, is limited in scope. The reality is we all wake up every morning and we all wake up inside our bodies, and the body's only so tall and it's only so big and so forth. But we are so much more than this antenna. And the ability or capacity to manifest is founded on the self-knowledge of one's manifesting capabilities. That means that we need to know ourselves as awesome manifestors in order to be able to exercise the aspects of our own consciousness responsible for awesome manifestation. So this download coming in from the cosmic regions is awakening the memory, a very old memory. So it's interesting that this is happening. We're looking back into the history of the soul of humanity, where the soul of each individual in the group. And as we know, our universe is quite old compared to our Earth. So obviously human beings living on Earth are just a tiny fraction of the story of the soul. And the memory of the being goes back all the way to the beginnings of creation. And in the very early times of creation, we were very active players. We were very active participants in the story of the creation of the universe. All that time that stars were forming and planets were forming around the stars and the stars were forming together in galaxies and so forth, all that time, we were all part of that process. We were invested in that process, and we were actively engaging in the behaviors that were supporting that happening. A lot of discrimination was necessary, folks, because as we know, the beginnings of the universe, it could have happened that our universe expanded in a very systemic way, and it was like soup that just became a bigger soup and a bigger soup. But instead, there was a sort of isolations of energies, that in some places the dust formed more into a more concrete form like a planet, and in other places it didn't. And what is responsible, if we look back at what was responsible for our universe forming in a way that was not, that was kind of isolated and created different forms instead of creating everything just like a big ocean of form, all the form the same. Instead of it being all the same, it's all different. It has to do with love. It has to do with the excitement and the passion and the dedication to coming into specific areas of manifestation. and it has to do with getting excited about very specific things rather than just saying, oh yeah, well, it's all good. If it was all good, then it wouldn't have changed very much. There wouldn't have been a sun over here and some space over there. So it was required of us to move our awareness from a very kind of systemic, held out throughout the whole creation space into specified focus. And to do that, there was a little bit of, it required a lot of dedication and a certain amount of courage, because the spread out, I am everything in the universe and I am present everywhere feeling is a very safe, very stable feeling. And in order to isolate down, we're moving together, our awareness is moving together to create a solar system or a planet or part of a planet. This required a little bit of letting go of that very stable, spread out feeling. I'm just reading this. I've never really looked back there and seen that, but everybody's awareness is causing this particular understanding to come up. So I thank all of you for that. And what I realize is that the goal was always to maintain the comfort of that stability, even in the isolated manifestations. Therefore, it is evident that that quality of comfort is essential for our ability now to move into new levels of manifestation, to move beyond everything that we've created thus far in our life and expand into an area that's much richer and much deeper and much more powerful with regards to manifesting. So it's exciting to me, because what that means is we're going to move into some new territory. So I'm just feeling the way in. Also, I would like to add at this point a little reiteration of a point that came up in the last webinar that had to do with the fundamental forces that create the creation, and that is being, divine light of divine being, which left unto itself folds in on itself and doesn't really tend to manifest unless it is given the breath of life, the prana or the flow, which when being is combined with flow, then it starts to move. And I added to that last webinar these qualities of orderliness and softness, tenderness, on one side order, and then, compassion, love, empathy, like that. So that the order is modified, doesn't become too harsh. However, it became evident to me that if we put orderliness together with sort of that deep devotion, which is the exalted quality of love, what we actually get is dharma. That's a Vedic word, and it means that which one was designed to do. Dharma is one's station in life. It has to do with one's station, has to do with one's service to the creation, because we were all cut out to do something special. So dharma would be that thing. So when we put together orderliness with one's deepest desire to serve the creation with all compassion and love, we get dharma. So really what we're looking at here is not 4 things, but it's 3 things. We have divine being, we have the flow, and then we have dharma. So what's happening is an integration of the download of cosmic energy and intention. And it's this energy from the cosmos is remaining with us, and it's remaining in several forms, but now what's happening is a delicate mixing together of the quality of dharma for each person with that cosmic information. The cosmic information is manifesting in at least two different forms that I'm seeing right now. The first form is this activation of memory and also form of one's celestial reality. And when I say celestial reality, I mean that aspect of consciousness, which is you, but which has, this is especially for the ancestors, as I mentioned earlier, it is the reality that you have always carried. It is it's the larger definition of self. It is that self which comes from the honored tradition of having been one of the great manifestors of our whole universe. We don't tend, and this is for the ancestors, we don't tend to identify ourselves with that aspect because we think, oh, well, God created the universe and I'm separate from God. But the reality is that in the very earliest moments of the creation, it starts like one chakra, right? And then it becomes many. And so we started as one being. There was a point where you were the whole universe and the whole universe was you. And then it separates. So in those early stages when there were great beings, several great beings, and they were responsible for the creating that was happening, we were those beings. We were collective. And at that spirit level of creation, we are still collective. We are still collectively these great beings. Sometimes they've been identified as the great masters of creation. But we all have a reality at that level. And that's where the inner teacher resides. So this information coming from the celestial realms it's like a light. It's like if you shine a yellow light on a white piece of paper, then the white piece of paper looks yellow. And if you shine a red light on the piece of paper, then the white piece of paper looks red. What we've got going on is the spirit body, which itself you could say is colorless. And what's happening is the specific light is being offered like a kind of a gift into the physiology to reawaken the memory in the spirit body that it has this entire rainbow range of colors which it is capable of utilizing for the sake of manifesting anything. We thought we were going to manifest like more nice relationships and wealth and this and that. And here we are looking at the mechanics of manifesting the whole universe. Then manifesting something like wealth is like nothing. That's like small potatoes. Let's manifest peace on earth. Let's manifest a very extremely perfectly healthy planet on which we live. And even that is nothing compared to having built the thing in the first place. So this is the level. It's like students, when I taught music for years, and when the student is going into audition and they have to play their scale and they have to play it a certain way at a certain speed, what they do is they practice beyond that. They practice playing it in thirds and playing it in fourths and playing it upside down and backwards and playing it way faster than the judge will ever ask them to play it. And then when they go in before the judge to play the scale, it's like, oh, well, you just want me to play it up and down again? Well, that's really easy. So that's what we're doing. And I wasn't expecting, as you know, you guys, I never know what healings are going to come out of these sessions because your divine being is structuring it. But I'm telling you, your divine self, your infinite being, your eternal self is drawing like a magnet this incredible memory, knowledge, knowingness, energy from the stars. And it's drawing it right in to the spirit and celestial levels of the physiology in order to really establish, really integrate the concise memories, the deep understanding of how we work with the basic elements of creation, and that would be space, air, fire, water, fire, and earth, right? How we work with the elements of creation to manifest anything. The alchemy of consciousness. So the first thing is this energy coming in and integrating at that spirit level. I'm feeling a kind of a platform of energy building at this very, very fine level of the physiology. And it feels very stable and very pure. And particularly the purity quality, I feel, is basic for redefining dharma, because as human beings, we've defined our dharma in specific ways. And I'm sure all of you who are listening have certain activities you like to perform during the day, certain things you like to do. And everybody has different things that they do that contribute to their own well-being and to the well-being of the whole creation in its own way. And so what's happening is an expansion of that definition, a purification of that definition. To include service at all levels of creation, to include the actions which nurture the levels of ourself which are collective. The collective level of self, which is the spirit level, it is the celestial level. See the flower behind me? This beautiful structure was manifested with a level of consciousness that's so delicate. It's so pure, right? It's so innocent. The ability to harness the capabilities that reside at the very deeper levels of consciousness, the very powerful levels, have also a kind of a delicacy or tenderness about them. So that means that the more important manifesting that we do isn't performed by fiercely going in and grabbing nature by the throat and wrestling it into position, and also manipulating. The manipulating it in clever ways is not necessarily the key. It's not the key. These ways of moving creation may have temporary beneficial results at a superficial level of creation, but the real work, the really incredibly joyful and long-lasting effects of manifestation come from working at a much more sophisticated way. The laws of nature, which can coordinate those elements, the 5 elements I just mentioned, space, air, water, fire, and earth, are extremely refined and extremely delicate. So in order to organize that part of ourselves to function at maximum efficiency and effectiveness, it is necessary to be willing to let go of some of the safety nets that we've had. And again, as I'm saying this, we're really working at a very physically fine level of the physiology too. You have to understand, for some people, I may be saying this and you're thinking, oh yes, well, I've already thought of that and I already knew it. And yes, many of us already have known it, but many of our ancestors haven't pulled this thing together. That's number one. And number two, the shift that's taking place is taking place not only at a subtle level of consciousness, but also at a very delicate level of the physical form. That means that the area of the physiology that we're working with is cellular and smaller. Cellular and smaller. So let's talk about what's happening at the cellular level, because this is very interesting. Oh, and there's also a question. We're going to talk about that, and yes. Okay, right. So this very brilliant and dear man just asked that the process of letting go causes fear in most people, yes. And the reason is that it gives rise to a feeling of, oh, I'm not in control. And if my reality isn't orderly enough, then things could get out of hand and they could get scary. So this is why we began with Dharma. Because Dharma is that level of orderliness, which is refined or modified with such tender, loving, compassionate support from the Mother of Creation, from the deepest, most profound source of creation, that it is inevitably always going to align with highest evolution, highest truth, highest effects, the most beneficial effects for yourself and for others. And sometimes that might not be what we expected. Sometimes the way that comes forth could in the beginning be, wait a minute, I thought I began on this path in order to, create something specific over here, and now it appears like something else is coming forth. But always that's because the bigger picture is inclusive of more details than individuality may have considered. And also, again, a lot of the fear, and I'm just honoring for this individual who asked the question, is connected to the feeling of smallness, vulnerability, or weakness, which is held with the ancestors. And that means it's held at the molecular level, the physiology. And that's why we're down at that very fine level of the physiology right now, working with the energies there in order to establish a condition for everyone in this webinar, everyone who will watch this webinar in the future. I hope you guys share these with your friends. That we're down at that level in order to establish the condition whereby the most powerful type of manifesting, the most profound level of manifesting capability can be easily accessed and easily harnessed by every one of us without any of the blockages, the kind of blockages of fear that can come up and other sorts of blockages. So yeah, when we let go of the ways in which, and again, I'm talking to a bigger collective, guys, because this doesn't apply to absolutely everybody who's listening in real time, but when we let go of the ways that we have been accustomed to manifesting, the ways that we've been accustomed to manipulating our world or making things happen, and that's where the habits have been formed, and that's where it feels safe, but in order to get to a deeper level of manifesting capability, we have to let go of those older habits which are not as powerful and which have essentially worked out of favor. Because if, for example, if I get something I want by manipulating somebody I love into doing something that they don't want, then that breeds a little thread of resentment. And ultimately, I don't want to breed resentment in the people I love. Because even if in the short term I got something I wanted, it doesn't mean that in the long term I'm going to always be able to get what I want in that particular channel or with that particular person. Because if that keeps happening over and over again, eventually the resentment builds up, right? And then that person at some point says, you know what? I had enough of that. I'm not going to put up with that anymore. You can't ask me to do things that way anymore. So, we want to get to a more profound level of manifesting capability that goes beyond the techniques that we developed as toddlers to get our parents to do what we wanted them to do. And it is scary because often those habits that were developed in early childhood are the very same habits that people carry through to adulthood, only they become more refined or they become more developed or they become modified in order to accommodate social conditions, etc. But now we're talking about real Ritam. We're talking about manifesting from consciousness directly. We're talking about working with the elements, mastering the elements, mastering the interface between the elements of creation, space, air, fire, water, and earth, and consciousness. That's what we're doing. So, deep down at the cellular level of the physiology, we are ourselves a kind of universes, because we're this collection of chemicals and water, and then within the context of all the chemicals and water that make up what we consider to be our physiology, then we also have this, we're also this living microbiome. Those chemicals and water just are basically just a background. They're just a stage for the microbiome, which outnumbers the microbial structures in the physiology, outnumber the cells of our bodies 10 to 1. So we're really this great sort of living force that is naturally a collective. Well, the microbiome is made up of living beings which know themselves also to be cosmic, and know themselves also to be ancient, and know themselves to be intimately connected to and sophisticatedly working with their own subtle levels of reality, their own subtle reality. So our microbiome isn't just a physicality. It's not just a physical thing. It's also a spiritual thing. And it knows it. And the subtle levels, the spirit world in which the microbes in our body exist, is a beautiful, amazing, glorious support for our being. Just as the microbial reality of your body allows you to live, like we literally wouldn't digest food if our gut wasn't full of microorganisms. So our consciousness, the consciousness that we consider to be our individual consciousness, is deeply supported by an infinitely sweet, innocent, adoring, and devoted reality of consciousness that exists both within us and for us. And it is responsible for the health of that microbiome. And it is, I would say it is like a cherished friend, but my experience of it is more like cherished collective. It has a very palpable collective reality. I'm getting a download right now, everybody receiving the download, regarding this spiritual realm in which the microbiome exists. And I have called it the realm of the innocence, because the overriding quality of being there is supremely tender and supremely innocent and supremely sweet and absolutely deeply, deeply devoted to the well-being, devoted to the well-being of your life and to the life of our universe in a way which is nearly incomprehensible. I think incomprehensible, either incomprehensible or incomprehensible, but I would say incomprehensible. Nearly. We have a lot to learn from this level of our own reality. So I introduce you. I don't introduce the being, which is the very life of this healing webinar, introduces us to this level, this realm of the innocence, the realm of tenderest innocence. Bringing our awareness to this level of our reality infuses a level of incredible life support to that which underlies and is a foundation for life. So what we're doing is we're basically, with our awareness, feeding that which feeds the microbiome. We are upgrading the environment for our microbiome in a way we have never done before. I find this very exciting, you guys, because really, like, I didn't know this was going to happen. And it's very, very cool. It's very powerful. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just looking, because it's kind of new stuff for me too. I'm looking at the point, the junction point between where the field of the innocence meets the microbiome, right there. There's a very old story, and the laws of nature that govern the relationship between the microbiome and the field of the innocence have been functioning for a very long time. They function way, way, way earlier than actually the manifestation of, you know, solar systems. And so another question is coming in. Thank you, by the way, for asking questions. It's so lovely to have that interaction. I really appreciate it. So here's the question. I read slow, so I don't know what the question says till I read it to all of us. Okay, is this like a sandbox for universe creators where we will get our own creation in the future? Wow, that's just the first part of the question. That is such a deep, amazing question. Oh my gosh. Can you guys tell that this man who asks this question is like such a deep thinker? So, okay, so is this like a sandbox universe for creators? I would say yes. I would say this is the sandbox level of this universe, or at least of the life force or the life form level of this universe. So for that, I would say yes. And then second question, where we will get our own creation in the future. And it has always been my vision when I've looked at people's spirit bodies, which is where the story of the entire soul's journey resides, forward and back, that it is entirely possible for us, a million years down the road, a billion. And remember, a million or a billion years isn't very much for our universe, right? Our universe is 14.5 billion years old. So a billion years is, just a piece of that. It's just a portion of that. And anyway, in my perception, the universe is actually older than the 14.5 or 13.5 billion years, whatever the cosmologists say, because their instruments are only looking to a certain point. But anyway, so yeah, it is entirely conceivable that, say, 100 million years down the road, we are galaxies, or we are, whole fields of life. That is entirely possible. We are great beings of just radiant light that make up the support system for all kinds of values of life, and light. So the answer is yes. Beautiful question. Okay, here's the second half of that question. We learn playing in the sandbox of innocent delicacy for foundations of life, upgrading toward our personal universe. Wow, cool stuff. Yes. Yeah, I know, right? It's like really cool. It's cool. Okay, so thank you. That was a beautiful question. I loved it. Another question. So are you saying the field of the innocence, INNOCENTS, or innocence, as in INNOCENCE? And that's a really good question, because I've thought of it both ways. When it first came to my awareness, I thought of it as the second word, innocence, as in a state of innocence. But the more it's revealed to me, I realize that the individualized life forms there, which, by the way, are very abstract, and by the way, they overlap with each other quite a bit, and their physiologies are so very, very different from human physiologies. They almost look like little threads of light, like little kind of wormy figures or something. And yet there's a level of, don't get me wrong, their level of sophistication and incredible sort of very high amount of sentience there is quite fantastic. And it in some ways makes being a human, having this kind of physiology look kind of simple in certain ways. For example, their level of devotion makes the devotion that we see in our world. And I feel like I'm a person who kind of knows devotion, because I volunteered my life for world peace since I was 20. So it's like I was always kind of just working for the collective good. And yet, when I saw the level of devotion, which is lived at that level of creation, I was blown away, just blown away. And so this is part of what we're all receiving in tonight's healing session, is the value of the quality of consciousness that resides at that level of creation. But yeah, so it switched in my own mind to answer your question. It switched first from it being a level of tender innocence, as in a state of innocence, to being the realm of the innocents, those who are innocent, those who are so gentle and so innocent. So beautiful. And I'll tell you, for the longest time, there wasn't a big interface between human reality and that reality, because their focus is so broad, it's so cosmic, and it's so essential for the upholdment of life, not just on Earth, but in many places, that what we were doing wasn't in a big way in their awareness, really. But at least this is my experience coming into this space. However, this is the cool part, is that this area of creation and the life force in this area of creation. And remember, guys, what I'm describing is actually a part of you, because at the celestial and spirit level of the being, we are a field. So this is a part of our own being that I'm describing, okay? But it's a part that hasn't really been super invested or involved in our human level of reality, and we haven't been so aware of it and interacting with it from the perspective of us living in our little body antennas of the universe, okay? But now the integration is happening. Now the connection is being made. And as that happens, what's way cool is that this level of your own being, of your own subtle physiology, is ultra responsive to whatever you give it. In fact, remember I talked before about the being of creation and then being flowing and then dharma. Remember I talked about that? Well, the quality of flowing is very, very awake at this level of the physiology. This is, and it's interesting, like I wasn't really necessarily expecting you guys that tonight's webinar would just be like, it's almost like we're going for the PhD or something, where you go down and you just focus on like one part of the field of physics or the field of physiology. You know, they go down, they just isolate and get really into the nitty gritty. But this nitty gritty area that we're in, this is a very fine level of physiology, is the place where the potential, you know, it's the place where push comes to shove, where we really get to the aspects of our consciousness that are responsible for the mechanics of manifestation. So it's important. I now see that now that we're doing it, obviously it seems obvious why we're doing it. But anyway, highly responsive and receptive to whatever we put there. So the love, the appreciation, the honoring, the dignity, the recognition, that spontaneous, the gratitude that spontaneously flows into this part of our own being, not only is received and multiplied and given back in vast amounts and quantities from a very deep level of the physiology, from the inside out, so that the body receives strength and wholeness and healing in a very powerful way, but also there is a quality of flow there that allows or supports desire, you know, because this is a webinar about manifestation, so obviously we have to want to manifest something. So this desire becomes one of the players. Desire becomes one of the players. And as I mentioned before, this level of creation hasn't been super, in its own nature, it kind of exists self-sufficiently. And so things like relative desire to manifest something in our individual dense level of creation, it hasn't previously been so significant to that level of the self. So we need to go back and look at the interface between desire and that level of the self. But there's also another question, so let me bring that to, oh, it looks like it might be a statement. Okay, so innocence like a butterfly, defining manifested in it. Okay, wait a minute. So that you guys know what I'm saying. Innocence, the state of innocence, like a butterfly defining manifested innocent itself, that means innocent of happiness. It started contemplating this lesson a few days ago and came across this poem for dearest Dorothy. Oh, it's a short poem, one sentence, guys. Happiness is a butterfly which, when pursued, is always just beyond your grasp. but which, if you sit down quietly, may alight upon you. Nathaniel Hawthorne. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Very sweet. Very beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, right. This is the thing, is that the ability to effectively work with this level of self requires the stable condition in the conscious mind, in who and what we know ourselves to be, from the level of the antenna. And for those of you who aren't super familiar with that concept, you can look back at previous webinars and stuff I've posted online. But being basically what we consider to be the dense levels of the physiologies, ourself, this is the antenna of the universe, and we are the whole universe. So the interface between the antenna and this deep level, the spirit body level of the physiology, and the realm of the innocence, taken both ways, that relationship requires that the denser levels of the physiology can meet the innocence with innocence, can meet the gentleness with gentleness, can meet the tenderness with tenderness. So it requires some, again, vulnerability a little bit, because to become so tender and so delicate, and here's the kicker, here's the catch, is that because there's been a kind of natural separation over a very long course, long history and memory of humanity between this very innocent level of creation and the way our ancestors have experienced their life on a day-to-day basis. This innocent realm has been a place where sometimes imbalances could hide, especially because there's a level of invincibility there, which is somewhat unshaken or unshattered by negativity. Because again, remember, the reality at the level of the antenna doesn't really have a very big bearing on the reality at this very deep level of creation. That reality is going to go on anyway. It's bigger than what we're seeing. The perspective of those little wormy string things, their perspective is way bigger than our perspective, way bigger. So they're very sophisticated in a way. And so because of that, the kind of imbalances that can make life very difficult for us can't really shake them very much. They're very simple and they can't be shaken by much. It's not, what they say, the bigger it is, the harder it falls, right? They're very, very simple. They don't fall. You push them, they keep going. There's an invincibility at that level of physiology. Therefore, certain values of darkness or negativity have the capability of kind of hiding out in that area a little bit, or I would say energies, which might be a little bit of a challenge for us at our antenna level, at the conscious mind level, at our feeling level to deal with. And so being in a state of tenderness or delicacy that aligns awareness of the conscious mind with the realm of the innocence also can put us in a position of then becoming vulnerable to whatever kind of imbalances or darkness may be residing there. So prior to this healing session, I can tell you, because this has been evolving over the last couple of weeks as I was preparing for this session. This is what was evolving. Some purification was done in the field of the innocence, but what I discovered was it doesn't matter It doesn't matter to purify anything there, because nothing is hurting that level of creation. Even big old, dark old, nasty old things that we don't like up in our relative world of creation, it's nothing for them. It's nothing. So what I realize is, and I'm just realizing this right now, because I was already over there going, oh, well, we need to purify out any kind of dark energies and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. What we need to do is different from that. So I'm just going to ask Divine Being, because it's coming up right now. Where is that point? Ah, yes. The point where the balance wants to create is the point where dharma meets innocence. Dharma meets innocence. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So some redefining of dharma, which we already did earlier in this webinar, is taking place. Some redefining, expanding the definition. What does it mean? What is my place in creation? What is my gift that I give to the world? What is that gift? And we've been looking at that gift from a certain perspective. And so that is widening out so that it's a better match for the level of capability, which is in this spirit level of the physiology. How I as an individual have the capability. So it also requires a reframing or redefinition of who I am as who we are as individuals, because if I think of myself in limited terms, then I can only think of my capabilities in limited terms. If I think of myself as limited. That's why we did that whole healing, and that's why we have and continue to have and continue to have the access to the celestial realms. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily celestial realms as in the celestial realm of physiology, which is very barely manifested at all. I mean the memories from the stars, the memories from the celestial realms, from the stars and the galaxies, from there, the memories of the work we have already accomplished are required to be integrated into definition of self, so that we realize that what we are doing in manifesting here on earth, in these physiologies, in these social circles, in this society, in this physical realm, is small potatoes compared to what we've already accomplished. To self-identify with our role as creators of the universe allows us to expand definition of self, of who we are. And as we do that, we are then able to expand our definition of our service to creation. And underneath that, as that happens, and that's happening and it's continuing to happen, and I feel as if that's something that as it continues to happen, there's going to be some give and take with the physiology. So I'm looking at the physiology, because integrating a new understanding or a new paradigm of what oneself is will necessarily reflect in the physical form. Will make us look different. It'll make us healthier. It'll make us stronger, more eternal. This is creating an integration of eternal value into the actual physical structure. And that is a byproduct of this. It's a quite dramatic upgrade for the microbiome. So that means, for example, aging. We've talked in previous webinars about the DNA, but also aging is connected to something called the word isn't coming to me. One of you guys it might come to you right away. you can put up here, but antioxidants, it's good to eat antioxidants, right? Because antioxidants eliminate or purify these from the physiology. Who wants an A in the class today? You can help me think of the word. No, anyway. I think it starts with an R. Anyway, it's this material that's like rust in the body, and it kind of breaks down the physicality of the body. And then the antioxidants that we take in by eating like dark blue fruits, like blueberries and blackberries and stuff, and it's in lots of maca. It's in maki fruit and different foods. It's in amrit. I'm looking. It's a kind of a corruption at a cellular level. Huh. And it's a corruption at the cellular level that somehow bypasses free radicals. Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're the best. Oh, look, more people put it over here. Oh, look. Oh, everybody knows. You guys are great. I'm over here floddling around trying to think of it. Thank you. You're the best. Yes, free radicals. Thank you, everybody. So, yeah. So free radicals come in and they corrupt the cells in such a way that even cell division and the birthing of new cells doesn't seem to eliminate the free radical effect in the physiology. However, an upgraded microbiome is way powerful at moving through the physiology and helping to support the healing of the cells. I'm just asking, being, if there's something else we could do on the level of consciousness that would further support the elimination of free radicals. I mean, it's great to eat as many antioxidants as you can, but that's on a pretty dense level, right? And you eat the antioxidants and you kind of pray, right? Like it's going to go in somehow, maybe, I will absorb these depending on my absorption capability and so forth. But I'm asking the realm of the innocence what their take is on free radicals. I'm getting a really trippy answer. So, entropy or chaos is, according to physics, entropy and chaos are responsible for the fact that our universe formed planets and stars and different cosmic bodies rather than just forming as a ginormous gooey soup. Entropy does it. And what entropy does is it isolates certain forms in some places and other forms in other places, and it causes separation. And one of the things that the free radicals are doing in the physiology is they're causing a kind of a separation in a way. They're kind of like an entropy in the system. And that is responsible for a kind of a spiritual evolution at a cellular level of the physiology. Okay, so what's interesting, what's happening for this webinar is a redefining of the spiritual path at a cellular level of the physiology. So what we're really looking at is a situation where the cells have kind of agreed collectively that they have to have certain challenges or boundaries or limitations or miseries in order to feel important, in order to feel that they're evolving, in order that their lives have meaning at a cellular level. So that's illusion. Oh, well, that's easy peasy stuff for us, right? We've done illusion before. So what we're going to do is we're looking into all physiologies at a cellular level, and we're offering it is from the realm of the innocence. that a level of compassionate tenderness is communicating to the cellular level of the physiology, to the cells, because they are individual units. They have lives. They like have interactions with other cells and feelings, and they, you know, there's a level of life there. There's a level of life. There's a level of, there's stories. There's stories. They're a collective, but very precious. This it's a quality of love that I'm feeling. Love, recognition, acknowledgement. But it's really, I have to say, what I'm feeling indescribably sweet. Indescribably sweet. And it's going into every cell of the body, and it's recognizing every individual cell of our bodies. Oh, I think this is tying back to one of those questions that came up earlier. Remember the one about, oh, does that mean later on down the road we'll be like, let's see if I can bring that question back up, that we'll be universal creators, you know? What we now think of as our cells, that life that's in those cells, will be like whole humans. If you're a universe, think of how maybe your cells will be like all the stars. They won't just be like humans, they'll be like stars. So it's a big thing. This is an upgrade for the cells. It's a necessary step in the process that we're in for them to recognize, for quality of love to be integrated and held at a cellular level of the physiology, such that the illusion that the presence of free radicals is necessary for life to have meaning for a cell. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. As this is happening, I'm finding my own being checking in with cellular metabolic process as well. Because over and over again, I think of that process as a very essential component for the well-being and health of the physiology. But I realize, I'm looking at my clock and I'm seeing we're already, can you believe it? We're already coming in on the end of this webinar. So it's a good thing we have another one tomorrow, which is clearly and obviously going to build on this one. And I'm wondering if, for me, it's like an old habit when I think about the cells to think about their metabolic process, and I hope they're metabolizing everything okay in there because it seems like so often the mind goes in that direction. But I'm really thinking that maybe that old habit also needs to clear out a little bit. You can see Dorothy doing some energy work on herself, but also it's good for everybody to get a fresh start on that one. We get a fresh start. And what this is really about is self-identification at a cellular level. So an upgrade is taking place in the cells. A broader spectrum, understanding of who and what one is. Oh, more questions are coming in. Well, this is exciting as we're getting toward the end. Yeah, thank you. I'm not saying any names. They all come in what do they say, anonymously, but this is the question that really needs to be addressed at this time. So how does this relate to our manifesting better relationships, better health, wealth, etc.? Thank you. Absolutely necessary question at this point. Coming from a brilliant mind, a brilliant, sharp intellect. The relationship is this, that manifesting at the dense level of the physiology means basically kind of pushing our world around a little bit in order, like here, I've got my paper and pencil. Okay, I'm going to manifest a circle. Oh, there's a circle. I don't know if you can even see that very well. It's not a very good circle, is it? I wasn't looking. Anyway, yeah, so This is manifesting at a gross level of creation. I'm going to draw a picture of the sun. There's a sun right there, or there's a star. So that's manifesting at a dense level of creation. And that's very fine. I just happen to have a paper and pencil handy. But the fact that the paper and pencil was there when I wanted to give the example, that could have happened, but it might not have happened. I have, in fact, this is the first webinar I have ever given where there was a paper and pencil there. My last webinar, I had rocks. I wasn't planning this, okay? When I put this paper and pencil here earlier today, I didn't say, I'm going to use that in the webinar. That was not the thought in my mind. That was a completely different thought going on back then. And if I'd been super orderly, I would have taken that paper and pencil away thinking, oh, I'm going to clean things up for the webinar. It's going to be all tidy around here. The level of manifestation where you have everything you need exactly when you need it. When you have, with relationships, with health, with wealth, that level of manifesting comes from the deeper levels of the physiology. It comes from the spirit level, the physiology, the celestial level, the physiology. This is where the powerful manifesting comes from. This is the level of your being where you've manifested things so much bigger, so much more profound even than the kind of things that we manifest as human beings. So what we're doing in this webinar is we're pushing past the level of manifesting skill required to have a happy, healthy, good life as a human being. And we are working into the areas of our physiology that have the capability to manifest universes. So it's exciting, isn't it? This webinar is about upgrading, supporting, expanding, cultivating the level of self, which manifests way past what's important to us as humans level of manifestation. And what we're doing is we're going in and we're cultivating. We've been this whole hour and 15 minutes, now it's even a little longer, been sort of massaging in the level of the self, which can manifest way past that, way past. And in so doing, and getting it all integrated and orderly and connected together with the microbiome, so that the microbiome is upgraded, which of course is going to support health. And then getting it connected with dharma, which is the service that we create which is dharma basically underlies every decision that we make of what should I do now? What should I do at any given moment? What should I be doing at this moment? Now, what should I be doing at this moment is determined by dharma. So integrating with dharma means upgrading, being at the right place at the right time, upgrading the decision-making capabilities so that one is always aiming life energy towards that which is most supportive of individual well-being and collective well-being. I hope that answered the question okay. And I have a feeling that question is so significant, it's so powerful, it's so like awesome that I expect that we'll be taking it further in tomorrow's webinar. And that there's one more last question. Cellular free radicals aren't like devil advocate, are they? Well, that's a good question. I just have to read this last comment too, because it kind of sort of relates. Thank you. This is another person. Thank you for purifying the belief systems of our cells to no longer believe that there has to be free radicals / difficulty / suffering in their cell lives. So the answer to the previous question is yes, but the other point is that when one is functioning at a higher level, a higher frequency of existence, we don't need the roughness of the devil's advocate quality present in order for evolution to move forward with grace. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't question, because questioning is good. And I do appreciate that very much. And I do appreciate everybody's questions tonight. And I absolutely adored the onslaught of comments of people writing in Free Radicals. That was great. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I adore you dearly. And it was a great webinar, and I'm so grateful. Oh, yes. Thanks for everybody. Oh, gosh. And thanks to everybody. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's on the subscription program, because it means if you have the time and it's not an inconvenience, we can all like sit together again tomorrow. Because if you're on the subscription program, you get both webinars each weekend. So I did want to just throw that out there for those who are newbies or who aren't on the subscription program yet. It's a very good deal. It's a super good deal. You get... Now, I'm not the business person, but basically you get 6 months worth of webinars, and that includes 2 each weekend for $140 plus 10 distance energy work sessions. So I think it's a $300 value. But the cool thing is, what that means is if you sign up for a weekend webinar, you can watch both if you want. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, I just adored having all of you with me, and I am thrilled that so many people are on the subscription program, which means we get to do it again tomorrow, and we will have a good sleep on it, and we will come at it tomorrow with renewed and refreshed awareness and take this even further. And hopefully for my brilliant friend who wrote that amazing question about how does it relate specifically to manifesting, tomorrow I expect, if things go as usual, we will get into much more nitty-gritty with regards to actual details of the manifesting process and how do we master the elements. Okay, so thank you, everybody. It's hard to say goodbye. I'm having so much fun and I love everybody so much, but anyway, it is that time and there's more to do. We want everyone to get a good night's sleep. So thank you for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.